I'd buy that for $1. Well, $14.99 if you want it on disc. Robocop, the 1987 movie directed by Paul Verhoeven. We all know it, don't we? We either had it on VHS or we saw it on a daytime repeats on ITV with all the bad language dubbed, Mother Crusher and words like that dubbed in. But there's two versions of the game. The Data East original in the USA, which was an arcade game, then ported to the PC, Amiga and other systems, the NES as well. But today we're looking at the Ocean version, the Gallup best-selling Ocean version on the Spectrum, Amstrad, Commodore, MSX, ST, Amiga and PC. And this game does differ from the arcade original, so we're not going to show the arcade game today. Starting off on the CPC, because as ever, it's the version I had. Bought this on floppy from W.H. Smith's. The reason I bought it was not because I'd seen any review, because no Amstrad magazine actually reviewed this game. But it was at top of the charts for quite a while already, and simply it was a disc release, so not much choice with my 6128.
Robocop.
So I was impressed to load it up and get some sampled speech first of all, and this John Dunn music, which later becomes iconic, and the Game Boy version used in the Ariston adverts. Not going to be looking at the Game Boy version today because I don't have the cartridge. Let's forward this on so you can hear a little bit of the later bit of the music, because it does take a while to get started. So there's that USA version, as I say, it's by Data East, and you can get that for the 16 bits in the PC. We'll show a bit of the PC version later on. What a great tune. Yes, as I mentioned, inexplicably, no Amstrad magazine was sent a copy of this game. Did Ocean have no faith?
Serve the public trust. Protect the innocent. Uphold the law.
Editor of Amstrad Action at the time, Steve Carey's been asked, and he simply doesn't know why they weren't sent a copy. And off we go. You are Robocop, and you basically follow the plot of the film, shooting people and basically, yeah. Film came out in 87 and the arcade game came out in 88, and the Ocean game here does nod a little bit to the original Data East arcade game, but not much. I'm to the point where I'm not even going to show it because it's not really relevant. Soundtrack of this game really drives it along, and the graphics are rather nice. There's 4 different weapon types you can get, and you start off with a limited amount of bullets in your pistol, and you can also punch baddies. Some baddies take more to destroy than others, and you've got to watch out what's going up in those windows as well, because there's a lot of bullets coming down. CPC Wiki seems to suggest this game's engine may have been reused for Batman on the CPC, and therefore also the Spectrum as well. Speaking of which,
Robocop.
one little thing on the Spectrum version versus the CPC version is when the menu screen changes on the Spectrum, it doesn't glitch as much as it does on the music as it does on CPC.
Serve the public trust. Protect the innocent. Uphold the law.
Speech is available on the 128K versions of both the Amstrad and the Spectrum, and it also will load in all the levels at once. A little bit more fluid than the CPC. Your Sinclair gave this 8.8 in their reviewing system at the time. Moves at just the right speed on the Spectrum. You playing the CPC version on its own, you don't really notice it, but when you come across, you do notice just that little bit of extra speed that really gives it a slight advantage, although the graphics aren't as nice on the Spectrum. MSX version, yes, there's an MSX version, and I think we can guess already it's going to be what's called a weekend conversion, where some coders have very quickly ported the Spectrum version over. But we'll see. But can a leopard change its spots? This is ocean. So I'm imagining, yeah, a quick conversion done in Spain. With an audio glitch. Yep. We've got a slower Spectrum version. I'm playing this on my Toshiba HX10 today, by the way. Because for some reason my Hitbit isn't loading the game. Don't know why. Disc versions won't work. Cassette versions won't work, but the HX10 is fine with it, so... Anyway, you get the gist. It's Robocop. It's the Spectrum 128K version. But you have to load in the levels separately on the MSX due to the memory limitations. But, yeah. Nothing to see here, really. I think we'll leave it there with the MSX. Because it's going to get complicated enough with the 16-bit versions. You'll see why. Over the 64 version, beautiful loading screen there. Really nice use of colour. And all the loading screens mention the blockbuster movies now available on video. Because you probably didn't see it at the cinemas. I'm sensing from that high score table the coders are a little bit depressed. What does that say about the game? And you do get a little bit of speech on the 64, but not as much as the 128K Z80 versions. The John Dunn soundtrack is really beefy on the 64. And it's very colourful and has high-res sprites. But you'll notice I'm losing energy really quickly. Really quickly. But not to worry. I mean, I'm going to have many lives, aren't I? No, you only get one. Yes, there's a PC version. And it's CGA. So I'm loading this on my Dell 486 and I've turned the caching off, so it's all running at kind of normal speed. It's very similar to the Spectrum Amstrad version, except the controls are far worse, and it just feels more jerky. It's very easy to aim in the wrong place or react late. I don't know what it is. Perhaps it's the PC I'm on. Well, that should be absolutely fine considering it's a 486 just running slower. Sound effects are limited to PC beeper effects, but what is essentially a direct copy of the Spectrum Amstrad version is essentially unplayable, just not fun. The lack of that soundtrack doesn't help either. Although, that said, on the 48K Spectrum version, which we haven't seen, there's no soundtrack and it plays far better than this. And if you're wondering, here's the Data East PC version. I can't get it to run any slower than this, even though my CPC caching is turned off. And this is mirroring the arcade. So it looks similar to the Ocean version, but really Ocean are just taking their cue from this game. They have not copied the arcade machine. Over to the Atari ST. Casey Wong writes in Old Detroit, film at 11. And what a shame it doesn't have that Z80 soundtrack. Same sound trip, yet we've got some completely different music. So this is a bit more like, well, what we see level 3 to be on the 8-bit version. It's a little bit confusing because the levels don't match between the 8 and 16-bit versions. They're ostensibly the same sometimes, or they're moved around. So you start off punching on the 16-bit versions, then you get your gun out.
Serve the public trust. Protect the innocent. Uphold the law.
And this is the Amiga version, with the end of level 1. where you get to meet one of the OCP baddies, and Robocop spins his gun round. And the sound sounds like something out of the PD game. Level 2 on the 16 bits is, well, the ST and Amiga, is a shooting range, which you can't lose. You just have to, it's like a bonus round where you have to hit things. It gets a time limit. You don't lose anything or anything like that. It just seems to be, this happens twice in the game. End of level 1 on the ST. ST and Amiga versions the same apart from musical differences. End of level 1 on the PC version, which is the same as the 8-bits. You have to shoot the attacker and avoid hitting the hostage. And you use the crosshairs to aim. And so when the baddie backs out the other side, you have to shoot him many times. Many times. I mean, not like just once through the head or something, but many times. Back on the CPC, which is almost a sweet relief after those 16-bit versions. To me, anyway, this is what I'm familiar with. This is what I played on my floppy disk from W.H. Smith's. And I was pleased to get. It wasn't a game I would have probably bought unless it was the only floppy disk game in the shop. And, no, I was actually well pleased. Nice graphics on the CPC, although the lady in front does look a bit like Stanley Baxter, all dragged up. Now, I used to be able to do this. I used to be always able to get the bad guy, and I'm finding this harder. Perhaps it's age. It's going to be age. I usually say it's latency, but it's probably just old age, and I used to be better at these things. You are against a time limit. All the levels, in fact, have a time limit. So you do have to get a move on. I have shot the hostage. You lose some energy for that, but nothing else. And it looks like level 1. But there are some differences. Oh, by the way, Robocop on the 8-bit, or the Spectrum and Amstrad versions in MSX, cannot jump. But you can go upstairs rather awkwardly when the game needs you to go upstairs. Watch the motorbikes. You have to punch them. Oh, and you use a lot of energy if they just ride past you. Level 2 on the Spectrum version. It's essentially the same as the CPC version. There we go, done it this time. C64 level 2. A little bit harder. So it's off to level 3 on the Amiga. The music is authentic to the movie, but it's not as good as the 8-bits. Across to the ST. It looks so similar. I mean, if I hadn't said that switched, you wouldn't have noticed really, would you? And here's one difference. Level 3 on the 8-bits is all one level, and on the 16-bits you drop down. I am using a cheat here on the ST now. The game's built-in cheat, by the way. And to punch that door. And punching can be difficult until you know how to do it. It can be difficult to know how to activate it. So I'm trying to activate it and failing. There we go. Punch the wall. It's strange really, because in the 8-bit terms this game comes along quite far in their development, and on the Spectrum and Amstrad you feel it's quite polished, but this is a very early 16-bit game. So if that CPC and Spectrum version is related to Batman and the code we use for Batman, you wouldn't be surprised. But of course Batman is way in advance of this on the 16-bits. Back on the CPC, hit another bike there. Apologies to any bikers. There's just a nice rhythm going on. Don't let too many bandies get on top of you, because if you do, what happens when they hit you is you become briefly paralysed and more bandies get hits in. Reaching the end of level 3 on the Spectrum version. Probably shouldn't be letting off all these bullets near a petrol station. But hey, you know, GTA and that stuff. Oh, you've got to time those bikes so well. Got no energy left. Why am I not dead? I've got bullets going in, and I mean, I'm just sitting here trying to kneel down, and right, well, according to the tip shop, I've activated a cheat. Inadvertently, apparently if you kneel down when you've got no energy and you keep on punching, the game doesn't let you die. So I'm now invincible, but I need to kill these baddies who keep on walking away from me. Right, now I've walked off. That was weird. I don't think I've ever accidentally set off a cheat before. Level 4 on the Spectrum, it's the photo fit face thing. A random face you have to match to identify them. And that looks like a 1980s Liverpool footballer. And you go through all the order of it and try and match it. On the C64, that looks like my next door neighbour. On the left. And how do they do the photo fit on the Amiga? Why? If it isn't the faces of many ocean programmers, I suspect. Isn't that Gary Brace's eyes just gone past? And on the ST, I've got some kind of I appear to be photo fitting Nigel Farage. Back on the Amstrad, and I think I've done it. Angry Graham Souness with earrings. Congratulations, now raid the gang drug factory. So now, here we go. We actually got an actual... Robocop can be quite brutal like that, where you get attacked straight off. There is a degree of memory test about the game. And remember what I said about walking awkwardly upstairs? Yeah, there we go. Same level on the C64, looking really nice here, but I'm playing with infinite energy because the game only gives you one life. Additionally, the game as it shipped had several bugs in it that you need to make sure you've got the 2018 update that fixes all of them. Zap64 gave the game 89%. The reviewers on Lemon 64 are somewhat less kind. They point out the bugs, how hard the game is, and how there's only one life. And thanks to Andrew Potts and Patrick Furlong, who helped me get this far into the game by providing me with a snapshot. Although I managed to activate that cheat, the game crashed for me after the photo fit section. To defeat the robot thing, your best way is to punch him. and you will lose a little bit of energy when you're doing that, so if you're low, you're in trouble.
Robocop.
This is more like the level before last. Oh, there's multiple levels, but this time you've got lifts to go up and down on, which is convenient because Robocop is rubbish on stairs. Perhaps you should have a stair lift like Thor the Herd so he can go up and down all day long. Perhaps he should also get some life insurance from Frank Windsor, although can you claim life insurance when you've been turned into some kind of half-alive mechanoid thing? Perhaps there's something in the claims to stop you doing that. So this is where the games diverge again. There's a Junkyard level and we're on the ST. And I'm super cheating now. Junkyard level is fairly short, but there's obstacles to get past. And you have to use the space bar to jump, which is my ST's in a rather awkward position to do that. I do dislike games that force you onto the keyboard because you need to have the machine directly next to your joystick. It doesn't really work. Okay, the machine's only got one fire button, but yeah. Towards the end of the level on the Amiga, and this guy comes along in this machine here. Again, a couple of years since I've seen Robocop, but isn't this replicating part of the movie? But as long as you've got your massive weapon, you can easily defeat him with about 4 shots. And this is what level 2 is on the 8-bits, but it's much further into the game here. C64 version does have something akin to the Junkyard level on the 16-bits. Watch that time limit though, it's pretty fierce. I do love these colourful and high-res sprites on the C64. Again, something akin to the Junkyard level on the CPC. Shoot the end of level badly, which isn't a crane but a OCP robot. So now we've got the president of OCP and Dick Jones. We've got to rescue the president. So it's essentially a reworking of level 2 with the outstanding Baxter in drag. Oh, I've shot the president of OCP. Doesn't really matter though. Nice shooting, Murphy. You've rescued the president. No, I didn't. I killed him. The fight against crime is never over. So you're starting the game again. Final level on the Amiga. Got to rescue the president of OCP. And there he goes. Dick Jones goes through the window, and that's the end of the game. What's your name? My name's Murphy. And that is Robocop by Ocean. So, the Gallup bestseller, one of the best-selling games in the Spectrum of all time. That CPC version I purchased back in, it must have been 89. I'm quite impressed with it still today. It's extremely competent. Okay, it gets better by other games later on, but it's got a great soundtrack, it moves really well, you've got a nice in-game music, and it all just comes together really well. Same with the Spectrum version, really extremely polished. I think it's worth more than the 8.8 your Sinclair gave it. Very playable, polished, and just comes together really well. C64 version, remembering I'm playing this with a cheat, and the bug fixes. I'm afraid one life is unforgivable in a game this hard. And also the fact it shipped with countless bugs that have taken all these years, 2018, to get them all fixed. If you're playing through this game with infinite energy as I was, then actually it seems like a much better game. The graphics are high res and really nice. The soundtrack is thumping and it all comes together really well. But oh my goodness, that difficulty level, just needing more chance to get through the game. MSX, well, it's the Spectrum version, isn't it really? Nothing more to see. PC version, it's a poor port of the Spectrum and Amstrad version. Too slow, controls are really clumsy. If a PC was all you had back in the day, then you'd have to have put up with it. But there's no reason to play this game at all in 2020. ST and Amiga versions, early 16-bit game. A few years down the line, this would have been so much better. It's a nice try, it's competent, it works well, but I'm not having as much fun as I am on the Spectrum and Amstrad versions. But for my money, the versions of this game I play to this day are the Spectrum and Amstrad versions. I'm afraid none of the other versions come close.